All right, federal prosecutors in New York arrested Guo Wengui. He's the Chinese billionaire who is now facing charges of fraud, a securities fraud, wire fraud, bank fraud, money laundering, essentially 12 counts in that indictment. It's a $1 billion scheme that was aimed at Guo's hundreds of thousands of online followers. Hey, it pays to be an influencer. So a lawyer for Mr. Guo didn't immediately respond to a request for any information, for comments from a local newspaper. And he is friends with Mr. Steve Bannon, who was arrested on his yacht back in 2020. Bannon pleaded not guilty and was subsequently pardoned by Donald J. Trump, of which the rumors recently that he's going to get arrested. I mean, that's crazy. I don't think he should be arrested for any of those things. I mean, he's the president, but anyways, very, very interesting times we're living in. So, Guo had $634 million in alleged fraud proceeds from 21 different banks, seized between September 22 and March 23. And recently, they seized his other assets, including any assets that were purchased with fraud proceeds. So part of that was a Lamborghini. Guo has treated himself and his family members to a lot of luxurious items, such as a $26.5 million, 50,000 square foot house with $978,000 worth of Chinese and Persian rugs decorating that mansion. He had a $3.5 million Ferrari. I don't know, maybe a Enzo, maybe a LaFerrari. Pretty nice. $140,000 piano. He had two $36,000 mattresses. I like how they included his mattresses. You're so rich at that point that a mattress costs more than the average person's car. A $37 million luxury yacht. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The other stuff wasn't as important, but I'm sure his spending sprees were insane. So this all was focused on GTV Media Group. This was Guo's social media platform and a couple other entities, including G Club Operations. It was a purported membership organization owned by Guo and Himalaya Exchange, a purported cryptocurrency ecosystem owned by J, which J is currently still on the loose. Steve Bannon ally Guo Wengui and his financier, Mr. Kim Ming Jae, were both charged. However, they have not found him yet. So they were able to take in more than $400 million through an illegal private stock offering related to GTV called GTV Private Placement. So he told potential investors in materials written by Mr. J that GTV will be the first ever platform which will combine the power of citizen journalism and social news with state-of-the-art technology, big data, artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, and real-time interactive communication. Wow, those are some big buzzwords. Big data, artificial intelligence, AI. We're going to use AI. We're going to use blockchain technology. We're going to revolutionize the world. This is going to be the first ever platform. It just sounds, it's the typical scam offering. Hey, let's hype up our platform. So he was able to get more than 5,500 investors from the fact that he's rich. He's got a lot of connections. He's able to market through his social media platforms, hundreds of thousands of followers. Of course, these people who are mainly following him, yeah, some for entertainment, but most of them are going to be following because he's a rich guy. Let's try and find out from the rich guy how he made his money. Oh, he's offering a platform now that we can invest on? That's pretty cool. Well, he was successful at his other projects. Let us invest. So that's why 5,500 people invested about $452 million worth of GTV common stock. But instead of the money being used for the business, oops, that's a big but right there. It was instead deposited into bank accounts held in the name of GTV's parent company, which is owned by a relative of Guo. So Guo and Jay also allegedly fraudulently obtained more than $150 million in funds through a collective of informal groups called the Himalaya Farm Alliance. And then they transferred $20 million in proceeds to a relative who used $950,000 to pay for a flight crew on a private jet and $5 million to an entity owned by Guo's spouse. The pair also solicited funds for their online membership club. That was around $250 million in fraudulent gains, and it was by promoting an exclusive high-end membership program offering a full spectrum of services. It was a gateway to carefully curated world-class products, services, and experience. In reality, the club had just a handful of employees that offered few to no discernible membership benefits. Made it sound like it was Amex, but it's just Credit One down the corner, except even worse. And here's where it gets exciting. They also took in $262 million through their cryptocurrency ecosystem, the Himalaya Exchange. They promoted the product with a music video featuring an original song called H-Coin to the Moon. And it was showing Mr. Guo in various luxury locations. Now you see where the Ponzi scheme comes in. So, anyways, this is just crazy at that point. So, there's also another fun character. His name is Pras Michel, who's accused of taking part in a multi-million-dollar unregistered lobbying campaign for China, aimed in part at helping Guo's deportation from the U.S. That's interesting. He's a hip-hop star, and he is charged with failing to notify U.S. authorities that he was also acting on behalf of former Chinese Vice Minister for Public Security Sun Lujin and Jolo, which a lot of people may remember that name or recognize it, hopefully, maybe. He was an interesting guy. There was a whole documentary on him, very, very fun documentary. He was a Malaysian business person that was also associated with the president of Malaysia, who, I mean, there's just massive corruption there. There was the 1MDB Sovereign Wealth Fund that collected billions of dollars and had a huge collapse. And prosecutors allege that Mr. Pras Michel sought to persuade the Obama administration and then the Trump administration to drop or settle the probe into low and to expel Guo from the U.S. That could be potentially in exchange for China releasing U.S. citizens or residents, and the charges against Joe Lo remain pending. Guo was never dropped. Michel is facing multiple charges. He has pleaded not guilty. Faces campaign finance and witness tampering charges in the same case that are charging him with acting as an unregistered foreign lobbyist. Wow, this is just crazy. So what is very interesting is Mr. Guo had his rise as a property entrepreneur back in China, and he was able to secure enough money and enough real estate wealth to become a billionaire, one of the world's richest people on the planet. He left China in 2014 due to multiple controversies surrounding him, and he was a very, very outspoken critic of the Chinese government, which could be because he had some troubles back in Beijing, which is interesting that Pras Michel was trying to get Guo deported back to China, which I don't think would end very well for Mr. Guo, because there was multiple people who went against China and whatever, they were saying, whatever their beliefs were. And those people were, disappeared. So, anyways, Mr. Guo made his friend, and that was Mr. Steve Bannon, and he was the provocateur for Mr. President Donald J. Trump. So definitely a lot of interesting conspiracies here. So essentially, altogether, he collected $850 million for a pretty large crypto scam. They seized a couple $100 million of what he had, which is always interesting because when you're a billionaire and yes, you have a tremendous amount of wealth and you have access to loans, huge loans, hundreds of millions of dollars, and you do a scam that's sort of related but not related to everything else. As a billionaire, you have so many sources of income that you never know if what he purchased was with the real funds that he had from his real jobs, to the other case where you would have the Lamborghinis, Ferraris, mansions, yachts purchased with illicit funds. It's tough to know because there's been so many controversies where the government and police take and seize funds where I understand those funds you could say, oh, these were the dirty money, right? But the actual assets, who knows? Maybe they took more than they needed to. He did file for bankruptcy though. He's claiming assets of under $100,000 and liabilities ranging from $100 million to $500 million. That's pretty crazy. Although in many of these cases, if someone, a multimillionaire or previous billionaire, is facing charges and this is an easy out for him, a bankruptcy, he's living a different standard of life. He's still probably driving his Bentley, or worst case scenario, his Mercedes S-Class, and living a different lifestyle. He's always going to be a millionaire. He's accustomed to a different life, and he still has very powerful connections, and he's always able to get some loans to get him back on top from personal connections. Even if the banks won't loan to him, there's still a lot that he's able to do that the average person is not. And even if he does have under $100,000 worth of assets, similar to what Mr. FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried was saying, then this guy's a billionaire in slightly a different sense than Sam, because he actually Sam made most of his wealth from FTX, which later turned out to be, a collapsed exchange, maybe a scam, maybe involved with a lot of fraud and just bad business practices. Whereas we don't know the full history of the real estate past in Beijing that Mr. Wengui had. So maybe he still has a lot of money in China. Who knows? Maybe he is broke in America, but has billions of dollars left abroad. It's tough to know. But anyways, crypto is always to be found within these stories. And part of that is it's just like the dollar. You're going to have dollars that are being used for good purposes and dollars that are being used for bad purposes, and diamonds, and it's just another form of exchange. It's a powerful asset, and that's that. It's a value. It's a currency. So thanks for watching. Have a good one. Take care.